The old house stood on a hill watching the town below. It was empty now. But once it held a family torn apart by a terrible thing. The crime happened a long time ago, so long that the details were fuzzy like an old photograph, but the feeling of sadness still hung in the air. The victim was a young girl named Lily. She was bright and full of life, people said, but her life was cut short when she went missing one summer day. The town searched for her high and low, but she was never found. The case went cold. Haunting reminder of a lost child. Detective Harding had been on the force for 30 years. He remembered the Lily case well. It was his first big case, and it had stayed with him all these years. He never forgot Lily's face, her bright eyes, and the way her mother cried when he told her there was nothing new. Detective Harding had seen many bad things during his career, but the Lily case was different. It felt personal. Years went by, the town changed, people moved away, and new ones came, but the memory of Lily remained like a shadow in the corner of the town's eye. The police station had boxes of files related to the case, but no real clues, just dead ends and questions. One day a new detective arrived. She was young and eager. Her name was Detective Reyes. She looked at old cases not to replace, but to assist. Detective Harding saw something special in her. She was sharp, and she had a way of looking at things differently than most. She was assigned to the cold case unit with the task of reviewing old unsolved mysteries. The Lily case caught her eye. Detective Reyes started reading through the files. She looked at the old photos and the police reports. She talked to some of the old detectives, including Detective Harding. He told her everything he remembered about the case, his voice sad when he spoke of Lily. She found something interesting, a small detail that everyone had missed. The police at the time looked and looked, but missed one important detail, a small detail, a broken toy near the area where Lily was last seen. The toy was a small wooden horse. It was broken in half and it looked like it had been stepped on. The toy was not originally important, but Detective Reyes thought it was worth looking in. As she tracked down the toy's manufacturer, an old company in a nearby town. The company had records of every toy they made, including where they were sold. Detective Reyes discovered that the toy had been sold at a local store not far from Lily's house. She went to the store, but it was closed. A new business had taken its place, a bakery, but Detective Reyes didn't give up. She asked around to the people who have lived in the town for years, asking if they knew anyone that worked there. She found an old man who used to be the store's stock boy. He remembered the toy, and he remembered who bought it. He said a man came in and bought the toy. He said the man seemed nervous, and he paid for the toy in cash. The old man couldn't remember the man's name, but he remembered his face. He said the man had a scar on his cheek. Detective Reyes thanked the old man and she went back to the police station. She started going through old police records, looking for anyone with a scar on their cheek. She searched for hours, but she found nothing. She was about to give up, but then she decided to look at the old suspect list for the Lily case. Maybe the man with the scar was someone they had already looked at. She found a name, Harold Thompson. He was a neighbor of Lily's, and he had been questioned at the time. He had an alibi. He was working when Lily went missing. His alibi seemed okay, but Detective Reyes wanted to look into him anyway. She pulled his file and she saw a photo of him, and she stopped. Harold Thompson. Scar on his cheek. It was small and faded, but it was there. Detective Reyes felt a shiver down her spine. She had a feeling she was on to something. She and Detective Harding did more digging. Detective Reyes learned that Harold Thompson no longer lived in the town. He had moved away a few years after Lily disappeared. He lived in another state now. He was married, and he had a family. He seemed like a normal man, but Detective Reyes knew better. She went to see Detective Harding, and she showed him the photo of Harold Thompson. He looked at the photo and his eyes widened. He remembered Harold Thompson. He had questioned him years ago. He said he had a bad feeling about him, but he couldn't prove anything. Detective Harding and Detective Reyes decided to bring Harold Thompson in for questioning. They flew to the state where he lived, and they went to his house. They knocked on his door, and Harold Thompson answered. He looked surprised to see them. They told him they were police officers, and they wanted to ask him some questions about the Lily case. Harold Thompson was nervous. He said he didn't know anything about the case, but Detective Reyes could see he was lying. They took him to the local police station, and they started questioning him. They asked him about his alibi, and he repeated the same story. He said he was working when Lily went missing. Detective Reyes asked him about the scar on his cheek. He said he got it when he was a kid. He fell off his bike. He stumbled over his words, and Detective Reyes knew he wasn't telling the truth. They kept questioning him for hours, and finally he broke down. He started to cry. He said he didn't mean to hurt Lily. He said it was an accident. He said he was playing with her in the woods, and she fell and hit her head. He said he panicked, and he buried her in the woods. Detective Reyes and Detective Harding were relieved and sad. They had finally solved the case, but it was a tragedy. The death was no accident, as Harold Thompson later confessed. He was filled with rage. Harold Thompson was arrested and charged with murder. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Lily's family finally had closure. They knew what had happened to her, and they could finally have peace. Detective Reyes and Detective Harding went to the woods where Harold Thompson said he buried Lily. They found her remains, and they gave her a proper burial. The town mourned her loss, but they were also grateful that the case was finally solved. The old house on the hill seemed a little less sad now. The ghost of Lily could finally rest. Detective Miller smiled a tired smile as he locked up the dusty files regarding Lily's case. He felt a weight lift from his shoulders, but he knew there were other cases waiting, other families needing answers. He walked out into the bright sunlight, the town square buzzing with activity as if nothing had happened. Children played in the fountain and vendors sold fresh flowers. The world continued despite the darkness that lived in some corners. He decided to grab a cup of coffee at the local diner as he needed to clear his head and plan his next move. He sat at the counter and ordered his usual black coffee, and the waitress, a kind older woman with a warm smile, slid the cup in front of him. "Rough day, detective?" she asked as he sighed. "Just closed a really old case, Mrs. Henderson, a little girl named Lily. It's been haunting this town for years," he explained, and she nodded slowly. "I remember Lily," she said softly. "Such a sweet child, always had a smile even after her mother died," and Detective Miller felt a pang of sadness. Her father seemed like a good man too, but grief can do strange things to people, Mrs. Henderson continued, and he took a sip of his coffee, listening intently. He started drinking more, spending less time at the hardware store. People whispered he was losing it, she added. Detective Miller knew grief could be a powerful force, but he also knew it wasn't an excuse for what Mr. Abernathy had done. As he finished his coffee, he thanked Mrs. Henderson and headed back to the station. He knew Lily's case was closed, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more, something he was missing. He walked into his office and sat down at his desk, staring at the overflowing inbox. He decided to tackle the paperwork first, then maybe he could revisit some old files, look for patterns, connections, anything that might spark an idea.